Yum, yum!
MODO is well known throughout the industry for its production-proven modeling and rendering capabilities, but I have found that many users have not ventured into rigging and animating in MODO. There are powerful features in these areas that have increased the speed at which I work and my overall productivity. I wanted to take a moment to share some of the features in MODO that I have found to be invaluable when rigging and animating. One of the most important aspects of rigging is making sure that your joints and controllers are placed properly. MODO has several features that make light work of placing these items, which in turn shaves off massive amounts of time when creating a rig. One of these features is the intersection option for the skeleton tool. The intersection option finds the center of a volume under your mouse pointer and places a joint there. I'm going to go ahead and place a few joints using this option so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Come over to the Setup tab, Skeleton, and normally what I would do is I would go and change my character to the side view or the front view or go to one of the ortho windows to try and line things up. But if I come over to the tool properties, I can see that intersection is enabled, and it is by default, but I always make sure that it is. And I can just go and start clicking and placing my joints, and what you'll see is that it's finding the center of the area of the mesh. So it fires a ray from the front of the mesh here to the back and finds the center point. So I can quickly place joints and know that they're somewhere in the center. I can also come over here to symmetry and set the x-axis and go ahead and start creating more. I'll just go ahead and click to start adding the legs. Okay, that works. And I'll go ahead and just add a couple for the arms. And there you go. So it's not all the joints that I need, but it's a good start. And as you can imagine, this single feature can shave off quite a bit of time when placing joints. A feature set that equally enhances the rigging process when placing items are drop actions. Drop actions define what action happens when an item is dropped onto another. The best way to understand this is to see it in action. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop over to another scene where I've added some more joints, and it's a little closer to what I would want. And we'll go ahead and start adding some locators that we could use as controllers, but we could also use those locators as additional joints. So say we decided that we wanted to have a clavicle bone in here, so that we could not just rotate at the shoulder here, but we wanted to rotate kind of where the clavicle bone would be. Well, what I could do is I could add a locator, come over here to drop action, say insert at parent, and I could just click and drag and drop. And what it does is it moves the locator to the parent of this joint, which is this spine right here, but it makes it the parent of this joint. So if I were to rotate it now, you'll see it's going to rotate that hierarchy. It's going to rotate down the chain. So it's a really quick way to get it into place. Normally, of course, I would have to go and change my view and try and line it up and get it to where I'd want to be. In this, I just have to drag and drop. I can also use it just to get things into place. So if I add another locator, and let's just say match position, I could click and drag and let off. And now it's not parented, it's just moved to this location. If I go to move it, I can put it back here, and now I've got a locator that's in a great place for my elbow up vector if I had IK on this arm. And if I wanted to, I could come down here and do some similar things. I go ahead and add a locator, and I'm going to drag and drop that on the knee, and then I'm just going to move it so that I have my knee pointer or my up vector for my IK chain on my leg. And I'm going to go ahead and add another locator, and I'll drag and drop it here on the foot, and then I'm just going to move it down, duplicate it, come back over here. Now I got a heel control. This will be my football control, and I'll duplicate this so I can get a toe tip control. Okay, so I have those, but I want to go ahead and start setting up the hierarchy on my controls. So I'll just come over here to drop actions, and let's do parent in place. And so now all I have to do is drag and drop, and then whenever I go to rotate, I've got my rig. If I go to my football and I go to rotate there, the toe tip's going to go with it. So again, just a quick way to go in and start placing my items, and then I know that they're placed where I want. It's lined up with the joint that I matched earlier. And I can take it even further. If I wanted to start setting up things for, say, a face rig, I'm going to go ahead and add another locator. And I'm going to just move it up so it's out of the mix of those locators down there that I haven't sized or changed their display. And what I want to do is I want to start building some controllers to, say, control the brow on this face. So what I can do is I'm going to change the drop action to place, and I'm just going to click and drag and drop right there, and now it's right in line with the point right there on the face mesh. And let's go ahead, I'm going to change the display on this just because it's kind of big, so I'm just going to change that down kind of small, maybe not that small. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate it, drag and drop it here, duplicate it, drag and drop, duplicate, and I can keep going. Let's just say that this is what I want there. I can go ahead and take those controllers, and let's go ahead and just grab all of them. Just going to lasso select, duplicate them, mirror them over, and I'm on my way to having the controllers that I need for my brow, and I can continue to do this for the lip and the nose and things like that, and build up all the controls that I need for my face rig pretty fast. There are more drop action options available, but as you can see, this can greatly increase the speed at which you can place your controllers and items in the scene, knowing that they're going to line up perfectly, and you don't have to switch to different views. That's the biggest thing that I love about this, is that I can quickly go and place them, and I'm not hopping between my front, my top, my side ortho windows. I can just go right here in the perspective window and know that it's going to end up where I need it. The setup action state in MODO quickly became one of my favorite features when rigging and animating. This feature allows you to refine a rig after you've already started animating without having to remove or disable any of the animation. So if I were to go in and see that when I rotate my arm here, if I didn't like what was going on here and I realized that maybe the joint was too far out, I can just leave it just like this, enter the setup action state, and go ahead and I'm going to turn child compensation on my move tool so that I don't end up changing any of the placement of the fingers here. I'm just going to turn that on, slide that over, say to somewhere like there. I'm actually going to turn this off after I've committed, just to make sure that I don't forget about that. I'm going to come over here and I can see that I'm liking that deformation a lot better. And I didn't have to go and reanimate this. So I could have a full-blown animation, and if I hit a point where I realize that my rig just needs a little bit of refinement, I don't have to remove any of the animation or worry about the rig breaking. I just enter setup state and I can go ahead and do those refinements and pop right back over to my animation. Weight containers are another feature in MODO that has helped speed up the rigging process, offering options that I didn't have before. Weight containers are similar to weight maps, but they are an independent item and are not tied to a mesh. I used weight containers instead of weight maps on this cartoon truck rig, knowing that I wanted to repurpose the rig for multiple vehicles. So if I would have used the standard weight map option for rigging, I would still get the same result. I'd be able to go and scrub through, and everything would move the way I wanted it to. But if I came over and deleted the chassis, and I'll go ahead and delete the engine as well, we don't need that. Say yes to all. Now normally what would happen is that the weight maps would have been tied to the rig. Well, those weight maps are tied to the mesh. You remove the mesh, you remove the weight map. The rig no longer works. But because I used weight containers, the rig is calling for the weight containers, which are independent items. So if I were to go in, and I'm going to go back to zero, frame zero, and say I want to add this vehicle, all I need to do is select the geometry that makes up the mesh that I want to add to the weight container. Go find the weight container. I'm going to use the base truck. I'm going to go ahead and add those points to that weight container, and it snaps right into place. If I come over here and scrub through, we can see that everything's animating properly, and the car is now part of that rig. If I want, I can swap that car out. If I want to swap out the tires I used weight containers throughout the entire rig so that I could go in and easily change, because as you can tell, the chassis on this car has room for a much bigger back tire. So maybe I'll go in and make larger back tires, but I don't want to have to re-rig this thing. So what I'd be able to do is go in and just add those tires to the weight container, remove this. It's not, the weight values aren't tied to the mesh, so I can just continue to swap out elements and I'd be able to move pretty quick. One of the added benefits to using weight containers over weight maps is that you're not limited to adding geometry to a weight container, putting weight values on vertices. You can also add items. So for instance, in this face rig, I wanted to be able to control multiple controls at once, and I didn't want to have to worry about parenting or doing dynamic parenting or anything like that. So what I did was I created a weight container that's driven by this locator, and I went ahead and just added these items that control the brow so that I can just move all of them at once. And again, these are not parented, they're just dropped into the weight container. So I've used it for all sorts of things, and one example would be if I wanted to attach a separate object like say a watch to a wrist, I can use the same weight container that I'm using for say the lower arm or the wrist or the hand, and I could drop a locator into that container, and then I could dynamically parent or do whatever I want with another item like a watch and attach it right there. And whenever I move the arm, that locator or additional item, because it's part of the weight container, will move with it. Another powerful feature in MODO for rigging and animation is the ability to use layered transforms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this this ball here, and I'm just going to do a real simple animation. I'm going to go and in the X, I'm going to keyframe it at 0, come over to 120, and let's just kind of move that this way. And also, as it's moving along the path there, I'm going to go ahead and key the rotation. So I'm going to key it in the Y, and then let's have it rotate at the end. It'll have traveled 720 degrees around. So it's moving and it's rotating. And I'm going to go ahead and set up a motion path just so we can see the motion path here. And it's spinning and moving. But what I want to do is I want a more complex animation that would normally take an additional locator or an additional rig to get it to work. I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to change the order in which my transformations are happening. So I have position, rotation. Well, I'm going to change rotation. I'm going to move it up. And so now it's going to apply the position before the rotation. And as I scrub through, we can see we get this nice little spiral motion, all with the same keyframes that we had set, just changing the order. And I'm not limited to one set of rotation or position channels. I'm going to have multiple, and scale as well. But I'm going to go ahead and add another position so that I'm moving it, rotating it, and then I'm additionally moving it. And we'll do it say in the Y. I'm going to just come over to the graph editor, Y channel, I'm going to go ahead and create a keyframe at 0 and come over a little bit with my time slider here and create another keyframe, and then come over here and create another keyframe. And I'm going to repeat this. So I'll just hit repeat. So I get a little bouncing motion, but I think it's going to be it's spaced out a little too far, so I'm just going to go in and adjust my motion here. I want it to bounce a lot. Okay, so I can go ahead and close that and push play. So all with one item. I don't have any kind of hierarchy here. It's just one item. I'm using layered transforms so I could get a complex motion with just a few keyframes. I've been taking advantage of this feature on my character models and character rigs when I don't want a character's eye to be a perfect circle, but I still want it to be able to animate properly. And to set this up, it's quite simple. So I have this eye. I'm going to go over to my channels, and you can see that I have my scale channels, rotation, position. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an additional scale. And I'm going to go ahead and just channel haul those to bring those up. What I can do is I can adjust the eye and change its shape. So now it looks more like an M&M lintel than it does an eyeball because of the shape. But because that is happening after these other transformations, it doesn't matter. So if I go ahead and rotate that, it will conform to that shape. Let me go to the side view so you can really see. It'll conform to that shape, but I'm able to rotate it around and have it look. I don't have any kind of hierarchy here. I'm just taking advantage of the layered transforms. So I could do the same thing with the eyelids, and then I could attach this to a character, and now I have the ability to have deformed eyes that still animate properly. Adding the use of assemblies to my production pipeline has been another big time saver when rigging. For instance, in this truck rig, I have most of the items are being driven off of the master mover here down at the base. So as it moves along the track, that animation path, different things are happening. The truck is tilting, the barrel is rolling from side to side, the bug up top with the spring is kind of going from side to side. And when the truck speeds up or slows down, it's affected as well. So here towards the end, I'm just kind of scrubbing through, you can see it tilts forward when it's braking, basically, when there's no more speed. Okay, and so I created a flow in the schematic that drives that. But say I also want to use the same setup to drive the brake lights. Well, all I need to do is I'm going to go over to the master mover world position and drag that over. I don't need all of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and separate out the channel and just remove that. So I just need the world position. And then I need to get my hands on the diffuse amount for that brake light. So I'm going to go over to shading and go to brake light, material. Let's take a look. We'll go diffuse, and I'm going to drag that in. So what I want to do is I want to use the setup the flow that I used to drive the tilting of the chassis. Well, I want to use that to drive the diffuse amount. But instead of having to reset it up, what I did was I saved it out as an assembly. So I'll just come over to assemblies. I'll just drag and drop that into my schematic view. Position these how I want, and I'm going to have the world position of the mover, so I'll plug that into world position, and I can grab the output and plug it into the diffuse amount. And as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and maximize that. You can see the tail lights are not bright, but when it goes to stop, you can see they get bright red because I'm driving the diffuse amount. And instead of having to go and set up the entire flow, I just saved that on assembly. So now on any project that I need to be able to read whether an item is speeding up or slowing down, all I have to do is use this assembly. I can just save it off into a folder that allows me to drag it in for any project that I want, and it will save me the time of setting it up from scratch. Taking advantage of the order of operations for deformers and MODO has given me the ability to push my cartoon character rigs further than I would have before. For example, I'm going to go ahead and open up the controls for the face rig, and I'll just have the eyes blink a little bit. If I want, I can just warp the whole head and make it a little more spherical, and know that because the eyes are blinking in my deformation list before the warp, the eye blinks are still going to work. I'm going to turn that off, and let's do some more customization. I'm going to go over to the eye warp controls, and I'm just going to size this up, maybe stretch it up a little bit and flatten it out some. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'll size this down, maybe flatten it and squeeze it in a little bit. Okay, so I've got some pretty warped eyes there, but because of the order of operations, I'm able to still go in and blink my eyes. And I can do that throughout the head, throughout the face, and throughout the body. It's really something that's nice that I can tell it what order to do the different deformations and know that I don't have to worry about breaking my rig. MODO also has mesh deformers that can deliver amazing results, and they're easy to use and set up. In this example, I've just taken this little tire and I've got it animated along the path, and I'm going to apply three different mesh deformers. The first one I'll use is magnet, and what it'll do is it'll kind of flatten out the tire as it looks like it's touching the ground. And then I'll add a morph deformer so that I can spread out the volume of the tire, which gives it a little more realistic look, so that it doesn't lose volume as it's putting pressure on the ground. And then I'll add one more, the lag deformer, which gives a pretty interesting look. I love this. It actually kind of makes me laugh every time I watch it. But we get a little cartoon hop out of this tire, all based off of the same animation, just taking advantage of some of the mesh deformers in MODO. MODO also has a lot of options for constraints like channel linking and like in this case direction constraints. I'm using direction constraint here so that I can have the eyes follow this locator, and then I can also break it out so that each one can move independent of the other. This simple scene shows off one of my favorite types of constraints in MODO, which is the ability to constrain an item to either a polygon, point, or edge. And in this case, I'm constraining it to the polygon that this little red button is sitting up underneath. And if I run a dynamic simulation, we can see that the button sticks to the surface, sticks to that polygon, not just in position, but also in the alignment of the polygon normal. These are just some of the features that have me excited about rigging and animating in MODO. I'm constantly finding new ways to enhance my workflow, and more importantly, I'm having fun while doing it.